Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today I wanted to talk further on the law of non-resistance. We have covered the law of non-resistance in 2 previous episodes in Florence Scovel Shinn's discussion of the law of non-resistance, and I also read a little bit from Eric Butterworth on the law of non-resistance. And I think that I want to continually remind myself of this law because it works like any other law, like the law of attraction. And I need to continue to remind myself to be aware of it. The law of non-resistance has been a huge stepping stone in my life because once upon a time, I resisted everything. I hated myself and continuously fought against my life conditions. I just couldn't accept the hand of cards that I had been dealt. And this led me deeper into the dark pit that consumed me. The desire to resist negative thoughts and feelings and situations is a huge source of suffering because by resisting, we don't allow ourselves to process the pain, learn, heal, and grow. Instead, we stagnate because we're not learning what the universe is trying to teach us. We argue against the world with our words and actions instead of just listening. But at the end of the day, does this do any good? To really understand the law of non-resistance, first you need to understand resistance. Resistance is a common experience in life. It's the feeling of pushing against something that you don't want to happen. Resistance comes in many forms. Some are obvious, some not so much. But one way or another, I can guarantee you that there are things you resist. You might resist change when change is actually beneficial for you. You might resist new situations that make you nervous or afraid when getting out of your comfort zone is good for you. Likewise, you might resist your thoughts and feelings, which is actually counterproductive. Usually, resistance prevents you from growing, learning, and developing as a person. Whatever you're resisting, I can assure you there are better ways around it. The reason being is that resistance tends to manifest as stress or anxiety or frustration, and by resisting, you create tension in your body, mind, and relationships. The law of non-resistance teaches you to embrace the flow of life. It's about accepting what is and letting go of what you cannot control. I know it can be difficult, and I've been there plenty of times before, and I've learned that resistance always does more damage than good. In a nutshell, suffering is caused by resisting our human experiences. So we must learn to embody this. And there's some subtleties to this law. We've discussed it with Florence Scovel Shinn, as I said, and Eric Butterworth, but I really enjoy Raymond Holliwell's discussion in his book, Working with the Law, a book that we have previously discussed on several occasions. We've discussed the law of thinking, the law of supply, the law of attraction, the law of receiving, the law of increase, the law of compensation, the law of forgiveness, the law of obedience, the law of success, the law of non-resistance. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil. Matthew 5:39. Our interest in this law of truth is especially opportune at this time, when to many earnest students there seems to be so much in the world to be met, which apparently cannot be met unless some resistance is set up. Sin and sickness seem to have multiplied despite all the efforts made to counteract them. Resistance as a means of securing peace and harmony is a mistaken and misleading idea. True harmony cannot come from inharmony, nor peace from discord. Resistance fails because it is not in accord with harmony and order, which is the law. The Master's doctrine that ye resist not evil seems a paradox to some of us. It seems contrary to the natural reactions of a body. For when we meet with opposition, it seems natural to steal our energies, collect our wits, and use whatever means we have to outwit and break down the opposition. Yet as contrary as it may seem in one sense, when it pertains to the more serious things in life, we are unconsciously using the law in the trivial and material things. There are so many other names given to this law that we may not recognize it always as the primal law of non-resistance. For example, in our business world, we hear about the the psychology of salesmanship, service, credit, free deliveries, expert advisors, and every other aid conceivable that will help us find the right pots and pans for the kitchen, the proper style and color of a crib for the nursery, the chair for the fireplace, and the accessories that are so necessary to show off the living room effectively. In fact, there is one business house that advertises, "We have everything under the sun, so no matter what you need, you can find it here." This is good business, you say, and the department heads know business is good as long as they use this law. Why do you suppose they keep the doors wide open in the stores where you shop? Certainly it is not to let fresh air in. It is to let prosperity come into them without even having to swing open the doors. Have you ever noticed the number of people who walk through an open door in comparison to the number who open a door? Have you ever wondered why stores like the 5 and 10 or the 25 cents to $1 stores prefer to use the basement instead of a second floor? It is easier for people to walk downstairs than climb up. Of course, they eventually walk up the steps when they come out, but it is the first thought of the people that directs them to go down. You will note that this psychology is used freely in any large business. They often employ men and women to study ways and means to interest and attract customers. They study the law of non-resistance and the simple ways it can be used upon the public. A salesman will study the ways and means of selling an article. He will approach a customer and present his product in a careful manner. He will bring out comparison with other similar products. He will praise his product and show all of its good points, trying all the while to avert any objection or argument in the customer's mind. In this manner, he builds up a positive sales talk and leads his customer to a positive acceptance. He will get the customer to say yes to so many things that before the customer is aware of his action, he is signing a check or a contract. The whole of salesmanship is built on the law of non-resistance. Successful business houses everywhere are using it. Department stores are the outgrowth of its use. When our grandparents went shopping with their baskets, there were many shops visited before they finished. Today we can use the phone and order our list of supplies, very likely from one store. Mail order houses are dependent upon this method. It is in this way that they make it easy for prosperity to come to them. Business houses do not employ the only salesman, for everyone is a salesman of some kind. Whether we realize it or not, we are ever selling ourselves to our friends for approval or disapproval. We are ever striving to put forth our best self, and inwardly want our friends to see us in that light. A young man wishing to meet that certain young lady will try every means to gain an introduction. Then he will put his best foot forward, act his best, make the most pleasing impression. Why all this extra effort, you ask? Because he wants to make it easy for the fair lady to like him and wish to know him better. He is trying to sell her the idea that he is her best choice for a companion and friend. He may be unconsciously using the law of non-resistance as far as he knows. Why does this young man put forth his best side? Oh, you say, that is only natural. It is a habit or a customer that is true, yet we become so governed by habit and custom that there are times when we, in working for prosperity and good health, unconsciously put opposition in our path through this force of habit. There are some who may be working to gain success and to bring forth an increase of supply or material wealth, and yet have gotten into the habit of talking and fearing hard times. We may talk about our neighbor or criticize the method he used to get ahead. We may fear business conditions, and when we see the graph take a downward swing, we fear our investments and our job. When we do these things, we are very foolish. In fact, as foolish as a merchant who advertised extensively that on a certain day he would inaugurate the biggest sale of the year. After getting his patrons all keyed up for the bargains promised, he barred the doors and closed everyone out. For such an act, the patrons thought he must have gone crazy, or else he did not want any business to come to him. We call him what you will, but some people are just crazy at times when they want supply and prosperity to come to them and then bar the way with their conversations of poverty and discord. I don't say they're crazy, but I know they haven't learned how to think right, nor are they wise to the law when they choke off their influx of good with negative chatter. One student wrote me and said, "I am working hard over limitation, for I have had enough of it." My answer to her was, cease working over limitation and work only for prosperity. The law does not require us to work over or against the things we do not want, but it does require us to work with and for that which we do want. We dare not give our time, thought, and energy to that which is opposed to what we want. That is setting up a resistance contrary to the law and barring the way for our good to come in. How then shall we work for prosperity? By being non-resistant and in agreement with all that is prosperous, and using every means at our command to make it easy for prosperity to come in. Water is very powerful, yet it is a perfect non-resistant element. We can see where it has worn away the hardest rock. We have seen it sweep everything before its torrential outburst. Bridges, buildings, trees, nothing can withstand its force. Yet, note how the great river begins. It starts with a small stream or brook, high up in the mountains, where the ice and snow feed it in the springtime. Note also that it is a very crooked little stream, nothing like the great river it finally flows into. You see the little stream of water run into a huge boulder, a fallen tree, or debris made up of bushes, decayed leaves, and the like. Does the stream stop with the obstacle and wait for its force to build up so that it can push the opposition from its path? No. The little stream is not interested so much in the boulder or tree as it is in hurrying along and reaching a larger stream, a river, and then the mighty ocean. It does not waste any time with the obstacle, but quickly works its way around the interference and hurries on. It is urged to meet a river and then be a part of the mighty ocean. Thus we see that little stream wind its way round and round, many crooks and turns, but every turn takes it nearer its goal. Some people, unwise to nature's method, set up a different one. When they meet an obstacle, they stop their progress to collect their forces and put up a fight to remove it. This resistance they set up causes friction. Friction causes an irritation and inflammation. For this reason, many people's lives are hard and exacting. The waste of human energy is appalling. People in every walk of life are breaking down and wearing out like obsolete machinery. Remember, it is not the movement of a machine that wears it beyond use and service. It is friction. Friction is opposition and resistance. If we go through life fighting, opposing, resisting, arguing, we are bound to meet with many obstacles and likely become so occupied fighting them that we lose sight of our real objective. If we are always getting steeled for the next opposition or trouble, we can expect plenty of it. Whereas if we strive to make little of the obstacle and keep our minds on the objective or the desire we set out to gain, we may have to wind around and around. But if we persevere, we will ultimately win. We will reach the goal. Another lesson we may learn from the stream is that when it is small and struggling, it has the most difficult time. In the beginning, it will have so many obstacles across its path that it is ever winding around to avoid direct opposition. Silently, it uses the law to be non-resistant, and it grows stronger in force and volume. When it becomes a larger stream and then a river, its path is more direct and the obstacles become less and less. Then, it is not far from the mighty ocean. Students are like that. They have their hardest tests and delays while they are yet weak in power and understanding. As they strike out on a new path, in truth, the obstacles and tests will be plentiful. The wise ones will not fight the obstacles, but bless them and go on. As they go on with faith and assurance, they grow stronger and become like a great stream and river. Their course becomes more direct. Their understanding is of greater depth, and the mighty ocean, their ultimate objective, is not far from them. A woman recently asked for help to meet her problem. She explained that her home was mortgaged, and it was near time for her to make a payment, but the funds were lacking. She had converted her home into a rooming house, hoping to get money enough to live on. But there was the difficulty. She could not keep her rumors because they were so quarrelsome and critical. The house was always in an uproar, no one was content, and she was ill in mind from the strain and anxiety. It was explained that she must use the law. She must not oppose the good, but strive to work with it. With all the friction and confusion in the home, she must go back and use the law of non-resistance. This she tried to do, but whereas she had been so exacting and unkind, she found it rather hard to be non-resistant. That evening, as she entered the dining room, she greeted her people with a smile. The folks were so startled at the sudden change that they could hardly eat for wondering. That smile was the first smile some had ever seen from her, and others declared it was the first time in months that they remembered. One man was heard to utter, when she had gone to the kitchen to fix the dessert, "The old lady's going soft." And more thought so later that evening when they heard her greet one young man who had gotten back in his rent, who was trying to slip up to his room without being seen. She greeted him pleasantly and said she was sorry he had missed dinner. After a few weeks of this new plan, the woman began to enjoy it. She became changed within herself. She saw her folks in a different light. Instead of thinking them to be cheats, liars, and a quarrelsome lot, she saw good in them. She grew to like them more and more as one big family. They too became different. The family gathering at the table was looked forward to as a happy time and had grown to its capacity. Others had asked to have a room if and when a vacancy occurred. Even the young man who had tried to dodge her because of his arrearage had entered into the spirit of the new home and was able to get a job and paid up in full. Needless to say, the payments on the mortgage were met and the home was saved for the widow. She did as she was instructed. She became non-resistant to the good. She made light of the many obstacles and confusion that appeared and slowly worked around them. She held in mind her objective. This in turn melted down the hardness within herself and then reached others. Though she appeared to be going soft to some, in doing so she reached her goal and was victorious. In another verse, Jesus expressed the law more simply. He said, "I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. Pray for them that despitefully use you." In studying this statement, one might at first think the master was favoring the enemies, the opponents. Not at all. Jesus was speaking to all who desire to use the law. To extend a loving thought to anyone or anything removes the opposition and enmity that once seemed there. This removal must first be in the person's consciousness. Once the thought of enmity is removed from your consciousness, you will not attract the same condition again. Do good to them that hate you, because in doing good you are raised above the thought of hate, and hate then cannot touch your life. Bless them that curse you, and pray for them that misuse you. Why? Blessing calls forth the highest good within you. The highest good within you can only attract the highest good from another. To attract such good, you are running around all opposition and abuse. Thus, to live the law with others about you does not especially favor the others so much as it favors you. It affects others in that it takes away from them their weapons of hate and malice, revenge and like. And their love and interest will be reciprocal with yours. If a man resists a situation, he will have it always with him. If he tries to run away from it, like a shadow, it follows him, and repeatedly he will meet it again. If he ignores the hardness of the condition and fearlessly works around it, he will find a time when the hard condition will have been absorbed and removed. Accept the condition as some evidence of good. Look for that good, and by being acceptable to it, more and more evidence of it appears. Agree with thy adversary is another way of saying that nothing worthwhile and lasting is ever gained by argument. He who is convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. To disagree with one only causes that one to put on his full armor, to collect all his forces in opposition to yours. To agree with your worthy opponent leaves him defenseless and without need of his armament. To offer no resistance makes it easy for one to be amicable, and he who thought himself your enemy will find it a pleasure and a privilege to be a friend. Blessed are the meek may seem literally to support those kindly, timid souls who are an easy prey for their more aggressive brothers. Rather, it refers to the one who is able to follow the law of non-resistance to the point of inheriting the earth and all things thereof. To be meek does not mean to be an easy mark, nor to be a doormat for anyone to walk over. I have heard it said that in this day one cannot be a real Christian and be easy and forgiving. In this day one must be on guard to protect one's rights from being overridden by the stronger and more abusive. One does not know what is fully required of a true Christian if he thinks this. We are not asked to be a martyr for our belief, nor is it unchristian to be able to speak out fearlessly and positively. We need not be an easy mark, nor a doormat for anyone, for there is a greater power to be reckoned with, the power of the law when you use it. Yet this does not make us like a pugilist, but a master. This does not require us to be hard-boiled and boisterous in order that we may attain our rights. Our rights, when they are righteous, will uphold themselves. They are their own defense. They do not need us nor anyone to fight their battles. Now the law reads that we attract what we expect. So if one believes he is an easy mark, a doormat, a weakling, if he expects to suffer imposition and must resort to warlike means for his protection, then they that take the sword shall perish by the sword. The law of life reacts upon man according to his understanding and application. To be meek does not mean that we are submissive to the conditions of discord and disorder. We are meek only to the law. Such meekness gives us the power of spirit. Jesus was so strong in spirit that his spoken word was like a two-edged sword. It beat welts upon the intruder like a whiplash. Jesus, though a humble man, was no example of weakness. When he spoke as one with authority to the scribes or cleared the temple of the money changers, he showed a strength that was a delight to his disciples to the extent that they implored him to be their king. Do not confuse meekness with weakness. Nature eliminates weakness, and so she should. Weakness ever creates weakness. This brings on deterioration and finally death and decay. To live wisely, one must be strong and positive, though righteously meek. Such strength is not measured in physical brawn and muscle, but in mind and spirit. No one can be truly meek who is not strong and spirited. Meekness, then, is that strength appropriated when you do not argue, when you do not become angry or boastful and proud, when you do not insist upon having your rights in a quarrelsome manner. Meekness is the steel of one's nature. It is enduring. Meekness is the strength by which you win an argument by refusing to argue. When differences of opinion arise and your opinion is right, the real victory lies in the fact that right is right, regardless of what others may say about it. In science, we recognize the spirit of meekness as cooperativeness, persistent application, accurate computation, perfect harmony, symmetry of design and color, and so forth. Possibly the simplest illustration can be seen in our application of the law in nature. We exercise the spirit of meekness in accepting the terms of nature, and the more fully we cooperate or submit to her, the more abundantly we are blessed. We carefully select the best seed and plant it in the right place at the proper time and in the most fertile soil. Carefully are we to water and cultivate the growing plant to ensure a bountiful yield. Why are we so careful, so particular, so non-resistant to obey nature's law? Is it because we are weaklings and crave excessive work, and in general simpletons because of the utmost care and attention we are obliged to give? Only he who does not meet the law with non-resistance is foolish. With whatever degree the wise one meets the law with meekness, non-resistance, so will he be benefited. Thus, as man applies the spirit of meekness to the principles of his daily life, not the conditions, so will he be proportionately blessed. When perplexed, remember the little stream of water, and how determined it is to reach the mighty ocean. Be that determined to reach and realize all the good that is awaiting you? Why delay its benefits by putting obstacles into your stream of prosperity? Let us come over the path of non-resistance. Every worried thought, every fear, doubt, complaint, argument, and angry thought are but so many boulders, large and small, that you cast into your stream. These tend to change your course and to lengthen the time for your goal to be reached. Unite your forces for good with the good that is seeking you. Remove and dissolve every obstacle by blessing it and being willing to understand it. Mark it no longer a stumbling block, but a stepping stone leading to your highest good. And so what we can learn from Raymond Holliwell's discussion of non-resistance echoes what Eckhart Tolle explains about non-resistance. That non-resistance doesn't necessarily mean doing nothing. All it means is that any doing becomes non-reactive. Remember the deep wisdom underlying the practice of martial arts. Don't resist the opponent's force, yield to overcome. So my question to you is, are you forcing things to happen rather than allowing them to happen? That's the question you want to ask yourself. So when you look and evaluate at your goals, your desires, you want to be prosperous, you want to find that love, you want to find better health, the first place I want you to look at is, how am I resisting these things? And oftentimes you will find the gold mine in that question. How are you resisting your prosperity? Is there some part of you that is resisting your prosperity? Those little understandings of what it is you're resisting will tell you everything that you need to know. I meet people all the time that say they want to find love, but then when I get to talking to them, they are resisting finding that love because they enjoy being by themselves, or they're afraid of what will happen, or they're afraid of losing that person that they love. I meet people that really want to be prosperous, but they resist doing the work that they have to do. They resist doing the things they need to do to become prosperous. So you are resisting something. So we have the argument from Raymond Holliwell that if man resists a situation, he will have it always with him, which kind of contradicts with what I was just saying. If you're resisting prosperity, that's a place to look. But the point is, your resistance pushes it away. What you want to do is find a way around it. Like the water, you find a way around it. If you ignore the hardness of the condition and fearlessly work around it, you will find time when that hard condition will have been absorbed and removed. Accept whatever resistance or condition that comes up as evidence of good, and you find your way around it. It's a very delicate teaching in understanding how this works. For the longest time, as a former debater, I struggled because I would always argue. I would argue with my girlfriends. I would argue with my friends. I enjoyed arguing. Sometimes in my mind, I would say, well, it's just an argument. It's no big deal. But you will never win an argument even when you're right. And this created this resistance. People avoided me. People didn't want to bring up topics. People didn't want to talk to me because they were afraid I was just going to start arguing about stuff. So I found that by withdrawing, not reacting, listening, and not trying to win the argument, somebody says something that's absolutely ridiculous, letting it go, even on Facebook. I found this to be an easier way to ingratiate myself and find connections with people. And oftentimes the fact that I was right or wrong didn't matter. Let's carry these teachings to a practical application. Suppose that I am in unfamiliar territory. It is pitch dark. I run into a stone wall and I'm hurt. Why am I hurt? The obvious answer is that the physical opposition of your body to the physical opposition of the stone wall produces the hurt. But there are other oppositions more potent than those. The impact of your body against the wall sets into action a sequence of thoughts, all of which may be resistant. Your mind flares in resentment against the darkness, the strangeness, the complement of circumstances that eventuates in the collision. Also, your instinctive thought is, the wall is hard, of course I shall be hurt. Resisting the teachings of non-resistance, you ask, am I to dissolve my body in order that it may not resist the wall, or should I dissolve the wall in order that it may not resist my body? The nature of your mental reactions on striking the wall causes you to be hurt. You are capable of developing non-resistance to a degree that will render your flesh impervious to hurt. So you come against the wall and you move around it. You resist what you oppose, criticize, or resent. There's also the classic parable, if you resist it, it shall persist. When we resist or avoid confrontation with something we don't like, we're only inviting more of that frequency or allowing it to steal our power and distort our experience. We thus create a vicious cycle of constriction that leaves us feeling exhausted and depleted. When we face conflict head first without resistance, it has the opportunity to dissolve before us. It's very similar to the recapitulation meditation, which I had people that really struggled with. The idea is you face your traumas. You don't resist the trauma. You face it. And what happens is when you face the trauma, it sort of dissolves away and becomes unimportant. The only way I could do this is to bring up the memory of the trauma. By pushing it away, by resisting the trauma whenever it would come up, I pushed it into my body and it made me sick or brought about some other event or way I acted. There's many ways that you can apply this. The story from the Eric Butterworth episode is also very good. Somebody is mugged, and instead of screaming or fighting back, they look at the person and say, I love you, you're a child of God. And that non-resistance sort of causes the other person to stop and let go and move away and stop mugging the person. The most obvious example is when you bring up fear-based thoughts. You become worried about your child because they're going to be sick. And then you unconsciously attract illness and disaster to your child by continually holding them in thoughts of fear and watching for symptoms. You continuously worry about becoming poor, and you unconsciously attract situations that create poverty in your life. This is a very subtle law, and I still haven't mastered it. I still don't entirely understand it, and that's why I share these teachings with you. So I'd love to get your perspective on this, and I ask you to please share your stories when you found that the law of non-resistance worked for you. How can you be like the water, moving around the obstacles instead of going after them, moving around the obstacles, moving towards that river and that ocean that flows? You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.